Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air, Iran strikes back, targeting the largest U.S. base in the Middle East. Multiple missiles intercepted. Tonight, President Trump's response, and just moments ago, the president now saying there could now be a ceasefire in the works. The breaking news and what our team has learned. Tonight, Iran firing a barrage of missiles at the largest U.S. base in the region. U.S. and Qatari interceptors heading them off. Several countries closing their airspace. The U.S. moving to protect more than 40,000 troops across the region. The president meeting with his national security team in the Oval Office as Iran began to retaliate. President Trump now suggesting regime change. Tonight, where is the supreme leader? And this evening here, we see new video of the B-2 bombers taking off in Missouri, headed for Iran to strike. And just in tonight, President Trump now signaling a ceasefire could be coming in just hours. Our team standing by across the region. Tonight, Martha Raddatz with the before and after images, how much damage was done in Iran. And tonight, the UN Nuclear Watchdog Agency now saying nearly 900 pounds of enriched uranium in Iran is unaccounted for. Did they move the uranium in the days before the attack? The other news this Monday night, the life-threatening heat back here in the U.S. More than 195 million Americans, nearly everyone east of the Rockies. Record highs and power outages tonight. More than a dozen people hospitalized at a graduation in New Jersey. The roads buckling in the heat. This one just as a driver was going over it. Ginger Zee standing by with the forecast. Tonight, a second shark attack in just a matter of days in the same area off the East Coast. What we're learning at this hour. Tonight, the stunning new images of deep space, the largest camera ever built, recording thousands of asteroids and millions of galaxies. And the new documentary tonight on Barbara Walters, Tell Me Everything, from Fidel Castro to Ronald Reagan, to that moment with Clint Eastwood that made her blush, to Lucille Ball. And we remember when she asked us to walk her to the studio on her final day. What she told us right here tonight.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Monday night. Many of you were with us here this weekend as we were on the air live amid the news, this major U.S. strike on Iran. And tonight here, Iran's retaliation, targeting the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, El Udeid, with a barrage of missiles, home to some 10,000 U.S. troops. 13 of 14 missiles intercepted. The other one didn't make it. And just moments ago, the breaking news here, President Trump now saying there could be a ceasefire in the works in the coming hours. Tonight, the video from Doha, Qatar, showing incoming missiles and interceptors lighting up the sky. The Pentagon saying those 13 of 14 missiles were intercepted with no damage or casualties. Late today, President Trump calling Iran's retaliation, quote, very weak, and thanking Iran for giving the U.S., in his words, early notice, sending a message through Qatar. The president saying it is now time for peace. Tonight, here we are seeing new video. These are the B-2 bombers taking off in Missouri, headed for Iran the night of the attack. Officials looking closely at before and after satellite images to assess how much damage was done. Tonight, the UN Nuclear Watchdog Agency now saying nearly 900 pounds of enriched uranium in Iran is now unaccounted for. So did they move uranium before the attack? And just before we came on tonight, as I mentioned, President Trump moments ago saying on social media there is now a complete and total ceasefire in the works. What we know about this so far. We begin here tonight with Iran's retaliation and ABC's chief international correspondent James Longman in Iraq tonight.
After 12 days of uncertainty in the Middle East, which has fueled fears of a widening conflict, tonight Donald Trump has posted that Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire. It was just hours ago that Iran struck back. Just 48 hours after the United States launched a barrage of bunker-busting bombs at several Iranian nuclear facilities. This is what retaliation looks like. The largest U.S. base in the region targeted with what appears to be 14 short and medium-range missiles. President Trump tonight called it very weak, but he even thanked Iran in a post online for giving the U.S. early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Watch as they're intercepted by American and Qatari forces above Doha. According to U.S. officials, some of those missiles were headed for Udeid Air Base. The Pentagon says 13 of the 14 were intercepted with no damage or casualties. Udeid is home to the headquarters of Central Command and Air Force Central Command, and it's likely where that U.S. raid on Iranian nuclear facilities would have been coordinated. Trump was there just over a month ago. The president urged peace after greenlighting that stunning operation dubbed Midnight Hammer. New video shows about 9 B-2 bombers taking off from Missouri early Saturday morning. 2 were decoys, the other 7 flying quietly to Iran. A senior US defense official tells ABC News the administration believes Iran's attacks will be, quote, regional. Iran called today's attack the Annunciation of Victory. The Revolutionary Guard claims to have fired the same number of missiles that the US used in their weekend strike, their supreme leader vowing Iran will not surrender. The US has been making adjustments to protect the more than 40,000 US troops spread from Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar and Syria. In the hours before, a shelter-in-place order went out at the US Embassy in Qatar. And mitigation plans have been in the works for some time. These satellite images show more than 24 US military aircraft had left Udeid Air Base. This photo was taken on June 10th and shows more than 30 military planes. 8 days later, a nearly empty base with only 3 planes still visible.
So let's get right to James Longman with us live tonight from Iraq. And James, you have more on the breaking news here. President Trump suggesting moments ago a possible ceasefire now in the works between Israel and Iran.
Yeah, David, this is a fast-moving situation. We have yet to hear officially from either party, but not long ago, President Trump announced a ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran set to begin in just a few hours' time. Under the terms of this deal, Iran would initiate a 12-hour ceasefire. After that, there'd be 12 hours of ceasefire from Israel. If in those 24 hours peace is achieved, well, that is the end of the war. But as we know, a lot can happen in 24 hours. David.
James Longman leading us off here tonight. James, thank you. Tonight, U.S. authorities analyzing the before and after satellite images of Iran. Of course, the question, how much damage was done? And the new questions, did Iran move enriched uranium before the U.S. attack? Martha Raddatz tonight and what she's learned.
Tonight, new video of the B-2 stealth bombers taking off on that historic mission to Iran under the cover of darkness, as satellite images show the breadth of the destruction caused by the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs dropped on Iran's nuclear facilities. 6 gigantic craters, the biggest nearly 20 feet wide, seen here at the Fordo nuclear facility buried deep beneath a mountain. Leading experts conclude the site was hit by 12 massive ordnance penetrators, or MOPs. Each target hit twice. President Trump today saying on social media, quote, "The sites that we hit in Iran were totally destroyed." But questions remain about the fate of Iran's enriched uranium processed at Fordo after the Iranians claimed they moved it before the U.S. attack. Satellite images from the day before the U.S. strike show unusual activity, a line of trucks seen on a service road. It's unclear if Iran anticipated the bombings and moved the nuclear material, or if those trucks were used to haul dirt to fortify the underground facility. The International Atomic Energy Agency now warning nearly 900 pounds of Iranian uranium enriched to 60% near weapons grade is unaccounted for. And tonight, we're learning more about that stunning U.S. attack on Iran, dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer. The highly classified top-secret mission started with a decoy group of 2 B-2 bombers heading west towards Guam with trackable movements. A short time later, 7 more B-2s taking off, this time heading in the opposite direction to the east, directly towards Iran, with no transponders and minimal communication. The Pentagon saying the 25-minute mission inside Iranian airspace began at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Saturday. And a lead B-2 bomber dropping the first 2 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs on Iran's Fordo nuclear site, that site buried deep under a mountain. Those massive bombs hitting facilities at both Fordo and Natanz, marking the first time they've ever been used on the battlefield. There was no response from Iran in real time.
Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us.
Right after those bunker-busting bombs struck, then the Tomahawk missiles hitting a third target, the Isfahan nuclear site. In total, 125 aircraft and 75 precision-guided weapons were used.
So let's bring in Martha Raddatz back with us tonight. Martha, what do we know, and I know it's early, about the damage caused by those 30,000-pound bombs you speak of? Did the bombs accomplish what the U.S. was hoping they would do?
David, Iran's nuclear program has no doubt been damaged extensively, with those experts saying each of the targets hit twice, the penetrating bombs burrowing through the cement and steel around Fordo. David?
Martha Raddatz back with us tonight as well. Martha, thank you. President Trump, meanwhile, was with his national security team in the Oval Office as Iran was retaliating against the U.S. today. Rachel Scott at the White House.
As Iran was launching its retaliatory strike on the U.S. base in Qatar, President Trump was huddling with his national security team in the Oval Office. The Trump administration already bracing for Iran's attack. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, arriving at the White House this afternoon, tracking those missiles from the Situation Room. Within hours, the president confirming in a post that American troops in Qatar were safe. I'm pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. And saying of the Iranians, most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. Congratulations, world. It's time for peace. After those historic U.S. strikes, administration officials stressed the goal of the operation was not regime change in Iran.
First of all, we don't want to achieve regime change. We want to achieve the end of the Iranian nuclear program.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change.
What we are focused on is not the changing of the regime.
But the president then posting this on social media. If the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? We asked the White House to clarify.
When the president is floating the idea of regime change, how does he believe that should be accomplished? Through the Iranians, the Israelis, or the Americans?
If they refuse to engage in diplomacy moving forward, why shouldn't the Iranian people rise up against this brutal terrorist regime? That's a question the president raised last night. But as far as our military posture, it hasn't changed.
So let's get to Rachel Scott live at the White House tonight. Rachel, what more have you learned about what the president is now saying, that the ceasefire could come in hours? And I gather the president's threat that if Iran does anything more to retaliate against the U.S., that the U.S. could still act here.
Well, David, the president is now pushing for peace in that ceasefire between Israel and Iran. And I'm told tonight, while the president does reserve the right to respond, there are no active plans at this point in time for the United States to retaliate, despite the president's earlier warnings, David.
Rachel Scott at the White House. Rachel, thank you. Tonight, amid this news of a possible ceasefire and talk from the president about potential regime change, where is the supreme leader and what is his future? Our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, live in Tel Aviv tonight. Ian, the supreme leader appears to have gone underground.
Yeah, he certainly does. And I can tell you, despite all this talk, the statement from the president, the Israeli Defense Forces conducting their most extensive wave of attacks in Tehran so far in this conflict. And even right now, while the show's on air, we're getting reports of heavy bombing inside Tehran. Another warning by Israel to residents inside the Iranian capital to essentially go into a safe area. Meanwhile, as you say, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has not been seen for almost 2 weeks in public now, prompting speculation about where he's hiding. Israel and the US, as you know, say they're not trying to change the regime there, but raising questions. Where is he tonight, and what would happen if he were killed in one of these attacks? David.
Our thanks to Ian Pannell and the entire team tonight. If there's news breaking on this, we'll come back to you. Ian, thank you. In the meantime, to the other news this Monday night, the life-threatening heat for more than 195 million Americans, really nearly everyone east of the Rockies tonight. Look at this road buckling and sending a car airborne in Missouri right there. And the map tonight, the record-shattering heat bringing sweltering conditions, triple-digit feel-like readings for much of the East Coast. Ginger Zee with the forecast and Janai Norman tonight with the images coming in now.
Tonight, oppressive heat and humidity hammering nearly half the country. Outside New York City, in Paterson, New Jersey, more than 160 people treated for heat-related illnesses at high school graduation ceremonies. More than a dozen rushed to emergency rooms. Here in New York City, 96 degrees, tying a 137-year-old record. But it felt like 106, even hotter on the subway.
Millions ride these subways every day, the country's largest transportation system. Crews are regularly checking the temperature and taking cars out if they're too hot.
In Philadelphia, broiling temperatures straining the power grid. Sweltering passengers stuck on an Amtrak train that lost power near Baltimore's Penn Station. Riders say for more than an hour and that there was no AC. And terrifying video showing roads buckling under burning temps, turning into ramps in Cape Girardeau, Missouri Sunday. Days of heat taking a toll on infrastructure.
And David, there's no let up in nighttime temperatures either. Here in New York City, the overnight low will feel like 85 degrees, David.
Incredible, Janai. Thank you so much. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Ginger Zee tracking it all for us. Hi, Ginger.
Hey, David, for many, it is the hottest in nearly 3 years, and for some, the hottest in 13. That's why we see those extreme heat warnings on the map. And like Janai said, it's all about those overnight lows not dropping below 80 degrees. When you do that night after night, it is cumulative, and a body's core temperature can really have trouble. So you see those heat advisors went all over the map, but look what happens with this cold front approaching tomorrow morning. We're going to feel like 93 in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. It'll already feel like 90 at 8 a.m., but timing it out, Detroit, you're going to have a muggy morning, and then things will peak. This is the peak of the heat for so many on Tuesday afternoon. That's when Philadelphia could see a temperature above 100. Many daily records, including Boston, David, at 101 tomorrow.
Where would we be without that breeze we can see right there? Ginger, thank you. Bring on the cold front. When we come back here tonight, another shark attack along the East Coast of the same place. This is the second time in just a matter of days. What we've learned on this in a moment. And you'll want to stick around. The new documentary on Barbara Walters, The Moment tonight with Clint Eastwood, that made Barbara blush. Next tonight here, a second shark attack in a matter of days off Hilton Head, South Carolina. First responders rushing to Caligny Beach Sunday, where a beachgoer suffered cuts to their leg just days after a 12-year-old girl was bit by a shark at that same beach. When we come back tonight, the biggest camera ever built and what it's captured in space. And Barbara Walters tonight and Clint Eastwood, what he said that briefly left her speechless. To the index, a stunning new look at the cosmos. The images from the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, thousands of asteroids, millions of galaxies there. The observatory running a 10-year mission to snap images of the universe using the largest camera ever built. When we come back, the new documentary, Barbara Walters, The Moments with Clint Eastwood and Lucille Ball. Finally, the new documentary, Barbara Walters, Tell Me Everything. We remember that rare final glimpse into her dressing room, a television icon who broke barriers.
I'm so impressed that you put a suit and a tie and everything.
This is for Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters about to announce her retirement. We asked her how she was feeling about it.
It's how I'm going to feel then. And everybody says to me, what are you going to do next? I don't know.
On ABC, Barbara, the first woman to co-anchor the evening news, leading 2020, creating The View.
People say, who was your mentor? I didn't have any. Today, if a young woman says, I grew up watching you, or you made it a little easier, David, I think that's my legacy.
In a new documentary out tonight on Hulu, Barbara Walters, Tell Me Everything, the rare footage, new insights from those who knew her best, and the gets. Fidel Castro.
You feel funny crossing the Bay of Pigs with an American?
Barbara was fearless, and it left an impression on the greats who would come after her.
She asked the question that nobody else had asked, and asked it in a way that always hit a nerve.
American icons would talk to her, even those known for their quiet way. Clint Eastwood.
Are you afraid of showing emotions?
I don't think so. There's certain things I just don't enjoy sharing with everybody else. What's there to know?
You would drive me nuts, and I would drive you crazy, because I would be saying, but didn't you, or haven't you, or haven't you?
Well, we could try it and see if it worked out.
We'll start with this interview. If this is okay, we get somewhere, maybe we'll do another interview. I think we'll stop and reload.
Lucille Ball after I Love Lucy.
What was it like? You got up in the morning and you didn't have to run to work.
Traumatic. Very. Well, for the first 3 or 4 months, I was in limbo. I was just in shock.
And we remember on her last day of The View, she asked us to walk her to the studio. And she told me this.
I think I'll miss it a little bit.
A little bit.
The amazing Barbara Walters!
And what Barbara didn't know was that backstage, the women journalists were grateful.
Oprah Winfrey!
The list went on.
Diane Sawyer.
Robin Roberts.
All of them there to say thank you.
Jane Pauley, Gail King.
And then that message from Barbara to all of them.
This is my legacy. These are my legacy. And I thank you, all of you.
She Was a Force, the new documentary out tonight on Hulu. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.